Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanyayragam smaren mana.
Nanyayragam smaren mana.
Nanyayragam smaren mana.
Nanyayragam smaren mana.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Haribol.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshasya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mama kupsana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanya yogam smaren manaha.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha. Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Yamadivir Yogapatair.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Anvikshikya cha vidyaya.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Mamacha pasana birva.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Nanyaryogam smaren manaha.
Yama Aribi.
Yamadivir.
By disciplinary regulations,
By disciplinary regulations,
etc.
etc.
Yogapatai.
Yogapatai.
By the procedures of the yoga system.
By the procedures of the yoga system.
Anvikshikya.
Anvikshikya.
By logical analysis.
By logical analysis.
Cha.
Cha.
Also.
Also.
Vidyaya.
Vidyaya.
By spiritual knowledge.
By spiritual knowledge.
Mama.
Mama.
My.
My.
Archa.
Archa.
Worship.
Worship.
Upasanavi.
Upasanavi.
By adoration, etc.
My adoration, etc.
Ba.
Ba.
Or. Na. Never.
Never.
Anyai.
Anyai.
By other means.
By other means.
Yogyam.
Yogyam.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The object of meditation.
The object of meditation.
Smaret.
Smaret.
One should focus on.
One should focus on.
Manaha.
Manaha.
The mind.
The mind.
Translation prepared by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Rasayana Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Through the various disciplinary regulations and the purificatory procedures of the yoga system, through logic and spiritual education, or through worship and adoration of me, one should constantly engage his mind in remembering the personality of Godhead, the goal of yoga. No other means should be employed for this purpose. Perfect. The word "ba" is significant in this verse, for it indicates that one engaged in the worship and adoration of the personality of Godhead need not trouble himself with the disciplinary, regulatory, and purificatory procedures of yoga, nor with the grueling intricacies of Vedic studies and logic. Yogyam, or the most appropriate object of meditation, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed throughout Vedic literature. One who directly takes to the worship of the Lord should not employ other methods, for full dependence on the Lord is in itself the supreme process of perfection. Interesting that this is not the only time this subject brought up in Bhagavatam. Pretty much the same thing Kapiladev says in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Certain important points are repeated for emphasis. So he says in the third canto, Yamadi bir yoga pater, abhyasam shadayaramita, maibhavena satyana matkatha, shavanena cha. One has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. And so here it is a little bit more elaborated. Yamari bir yoga patar anvikshya cha videya mama chupasana bir ba nanya yogyam smaranana. Through the various disciplinary regulations and the purificatory procedures of the yoga system, through logic and spiritual education, or through worship and adoration of me, one should constantly engage his mind in remembering the personality of God at the goal of yoga. No other means should be employed for this purpose. So, three most important things in Bhakti Yoga, or yoga. Naturally, how can you practice Bhakti Yoga if it is deviating from the principles of yoga? And then next one is Vidya, which is knowledge, and third one is Archa Upasana, worshipping the Supreme Lord. And so these three things are interlinked, and I think it's very important to understand that how Bhakti Yoga is in line with the principles of yoga. We know that Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as presented by Srila Prabhupada, as it is, it advocates bhakti above everything. And yet, there are 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, and each chapter originally is entitled Yoga. So that's why Brahma Vidya Yoga Shastra, that Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra, which is giving Brahma Vidya, spiritual knowledge. And so, as Srila Prabhupada many times said, that the modern understanding of yoga is just, physical exercises for health. Is not the full purpose of it. it's just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, if you do yoga, your health will improve, and many devotees also practice some yoga for health. There is no harm in that. As we know, we need healthy body to serve the Lord properly, right? But it's not the goal of yoga just to be healthy, because no matter how healthy you are, you'll have to die anyway. So it serves little purpose. And I think if you die in perfect health, it's more regrettable than if you die not in the perfect health, right? Because you become attached to being healthy and enjoy through this body. At the same time, we need to be healthy, because in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam it says that sense gratification should not be the goal of one's life, but self-realization should be the goal, and therefore one should live healthy life, because the purpose of human existence is to inquire about the absolute truth. And we can understand that health and inquiries about the absolute truth are closely connected, right? Because if you don't have health, you wouldn't afford the luxury of asking about the absolute truth. Rather, you'll be asking, where can I find a doctor? Which kind of medication could help me? So your mind will be preoccupied with other stuff. That's why health is the first priority. As Prabhupada told Malati Devi when she was in hospital, she said, our priorities, first one is health, second is sadhana, and third, service. And so it should be taken in that specific order. At the same time, if one is just trying to be healthy for health's sake, it's meaningless, right? For example, if you buy the car for the car's sake, and you don't know what to do with it, right? So it's meaningless. And so, yes, yoga is not just meant for health alone, it's actually meant to help us connect with the Supreme Lord. The very meaning of the word yoga is link or connection. And so, Bhakti Yoga, or yoga presented in Bhagavad Gita, is actually following very strictly the principles outlined in the traditional yoga, Ashtanga yoga. That's Yama Niyama, Asana Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. You can see that even the topmost level in Bhakti Yoga, actually, it's not the topmost, of course, topmost is pure love.
Prema.
But we can say the blueprint for Bhakti is Sharanagati, 6 processes of surrender. Anukulyasa Sankalpa Pratikulyasa Vajana Rakshishati Vishwaso Kapriti Varanam Tata Atmanikshepa Karpanye Sadvida Sharanagati. That first 2 Anukulyasa Sankalpa, accepting favorable and Pratikulyasa Vajana, rejecting unfavorable. You can see in yoga you have yama and niyama, right? Yama means giving up everything which is not favorable for your spiritual advancement, and yama means accepting what is favorable, right? And that's why in Bhakti Yoga, the first serious step is first initiation. And what do you promise to the spiritual master at the first initiation? Two things, right? Which are chanting and follow. Yeah. So chanting means what? Favorable, right? Niyama. Chanting is the most important thing which helps us to connect to Krishna. And what is yama? What is unfavorable?
Gambling, alcohol.
Yes. Sinful activities are unfavorable, that's why we're giving them up, by following 42 principles. So you can see that Bhakti Yoga is actually following the principles of yoga. But it's not so much physical yoga only, it's connected to consciousness. That's why Srila Prabhupada named our society Krishna consciousness. And so, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, you will see the exact same pattern. For example, the first chapter is showing the unfavorable, that Arjuna is struggling with the conflict, right, of interests. He is realizing that if he fights at the battle, he will suffer. And many other people suffer, which is natural during the war. And so he doesn't want to fight, right? So he's facing with a serious conflict. I mean, there is an external conflict, but he's facing with internal conflict as well. And it's called, the original name is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means grief or lamentation. So that's not very favorable for bhakti, because bhakti is not static, it is ecstatic. Right? So the first step, that you have to become peaceful, at the topmost level you have to become blissful. So this is bhakti. And so lamentation and all the other negative stuff like sorrow, grief, any kind of anarthas, these are all anarthas. Because soul is like Krishna, it is blissful by nature, anandamayo vyasad. And so if we are absorbed in lamentation, grief or anger, so if we are absorbed in all this negativity, actually Padma Purana says that in the heart of those who are overcome by all these negative emotions, Krishna cannot manifest. So these things, they become a hurdle, a serious obstacle, right? They stand like a wall between us and Krishna. And so the first step in bhakti is to become free from sorrows and lamentation and anger and all this negativity. Because Krishna is always happy. And so and why Krishna is always happy? Because he is Krishna conscious. Krishna is the origin of Krishna consciousness, and that's why he's always happy. And so if we are Krishna conscious, we're going to be happy as well. But then the question is, how can we be happy in the place of misery? Because Krishna defined this material world as dukkhalaya ashashvata, full of miseries and temporary. So how can we be happy in the place which is full of misery and temporary? And the solution, the ultimate solution is very simple. That you see miseries as Krishna's mercy and learn to be happy while being miserable. And if you learn that art, you'll always be happy because material world is full of miseries. And so this is what Srila Prabhupada explains. This is how real devotees perceive so-called miseries as Krishna's mercy. And so, and second chapter, you can see Krishna is giving the fundamental understanding and actually even practice for spiritual development. Second chapter, of course, speaks about so many things, but the vast portion of it is dedicated to one point only, that we are not the body and we are the soul. And anyone who listened to Prabhupada's classes know how much Prabhupada dedicated to that point. And then, so this is yama and niyama. Give up identification with the body and lust, anger, greed, and lamentation and illusions, and all the negative stuff is connected to that. And embrace the change. Establish yourself on the platform, spirit, soul. And then everything else automatically follows. Asana. Our position is yagya, or cooperation for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Lord. This is the principle of yagya. That's why Srila Prabhupada was stressing cooperation so much. And then pranayama. And pranayama is not just breathing exercises, but pranayama means that you actually live your life to the full extent rather than just exist. Drag your feet through life in a mechanical way, as most of the 7 billion people on the earth are doing. And you can only do that if you realize your position in the yagya, in serving the Supreme Lord, and that is serve the Lord according to your nature, as indicated in Bhagavad Gita and shown by the examples of our acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada. And then chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, which is Sannyas Karma Yoga, is very interesting because it talks about being focused on the service of the Supreme Lord. And this is really important for us. Focus in our spiritual life, even when we chant japa at any time. My understanding is that if you chant attentive japa, you live attentive lives. If you're focused at your japa, you'll be focused in your life. Because the way we chant is the way we live. These things are interconnected. And then chapter 6, of course, is focusing on the super soul, and not just passive but active focus. And that is to be guided by the super soul. And of course, to get trained in that, you have spiritual master, who is the external representation of the super soul, and who helps us to connect with the super soul. But spiritual master doesn't want us always to depend on him for every single advice. He wants us to be trained and connected and be guided by our higher intelligence, which comes from Super Soul, and understand what we should and should not do without necessarily asking every single time. So that's his aim, to, as Prabhupada said, to train us to be independently thoughtful. And so we can see from there that Bhagavad Gita, being the perfect yoga shastra, is following all the principles of yoga, and of course further on explaining Bhakti Yoga part. It helps us to understand how to build perfect relationships with Krishna and with others. And last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are very much focused on becoming free from the false ego, from pride and all these things.
Jnana Yoga.
Yeah, Jnana Yoga, last 6 chapters. And so we can see that first 6 chapters are focused on achievements,
Karma.
then middle 6 chapters are focused on relationships.
Bhakti.
Yes, and last 6 chapters are really focused on serving the Supreme Lord, understanding who is the Supreme Lord and how he is connected with everything, and dedicating our lives to serve the Supreme Lord, which means that we actually facilitate others, because real service to the Supreme Lord is to serve his servants. That is the sum and substance of the message of Bhakti scriptures, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, for example. Right? Aham haritava padai kamalam dasao nadaso bhagatasmi bhuya, as Vritrasura prays to the Supreme Lord. When will I become, when will I finally take shelter at your lotus feet and become servant of your servants? And Prabhupada says this is the essence of Krishna consciousness, as Lord Chaitanya says, right? Dasa, dasa, anudasa. I'm the servant of the servant of the servants, servant of the servants of the servants of the Supreme Lord. And so, I often say that if anyone has problems in devotional service, then the solution is serving devotees. Any problems in devotional service can be resolved by serving the devotees, because this is how Krishna can be pleased, if we serve his servants. And so perfection in Krishna consciousness means that not only you dedicate yourself to devotional service, but you facilitate other people in serving the Lord, rather than, trying to go up front and declare that, okay, Krishna, here I am, your great servant, arrived finally. That we facilitate other devotees in moving forward and serving the Supreme Lord. And so that is the topmost position, as Prabhupada explains. That real Guru is the one who is not seeing himself as Guru, but one who understands that I am the servant of everyone else, and others are potential Gurus whom I should facilitate in establishing themselves in that position. And so this is a real Bhakti, real Krishna consciousness. And as far as Vidya is concerned, so Prabhupada also explains that real knowledge, as it is elaborated in Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 starts with two most important elements. That's eight, which are amanitvam adambitvam, which is humility and pridelessness, and then they are following by many other elements. And in Ishopanishad, he gives very interesting elaboration on this, which I can't remember by heart, but he gives very interesting definitions of these subjects, of these items. And so, this is the process of knowledge by which we can actually establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And everything is meant for worshipping the Supreme Lord, for serving the Supreme Lord, pleasing Him with our service. So basically, jnana and yoga are meant, and yoga means practical activities, right? Practical activities are meant for the Lord's pleasure. And so this verse says that these are the most important elements. Alright, let's see if we have any questions, comments.
Maharaj, just for my own purification, explain a little bit exactly what yoga means by our understanding, by basic understanding.
Thank you. So, that the last verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is explaining Yoginam api sarvesham madgantanantaratmana shadhavam bhajate yamam samyutta tamomataha, that of all the yogis, the best is the one who takes shelter of me and have firm faith in myself and worshipping me. And this is my conviction that this is the best of all the yogis. And then naturally the question should come up, so how to become that best of the yogis? And then the first verse of the 7th chapter, which Srila Prabhupada gave classes upon, elaborated upon astounding number of times, something like more than 20 times. He elaborated on this verse alone, something like close to 30 times. So this single verse is an absolute champion amongst all the favorite verses Prabhupada elaborated upon. And that it is Maya Sakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Madashleya Asamshayam Samagramam Yadha Gesesi Tadshinu. And he says, now please hear from me how one can develop attachment to me in one's mind, how to become attached to Krishna, and how to connect with me through yoga, Yunjan Madashaya, and take shelter of me, and become free from all the doubts, asamshayam, that doubts are very dangerous thing. If we don't dispel our doubts in Krishna consciousness, they can destroy our bhakti. In the same way as when weeds are not weeded out, they can destroy the plant, they can choke the plant. And so, because this verse is actually opening the Bhakti Yoga section, which is the most important section in Bhagavad Gita, so Srila Prabhupada elaborated on this verse so many times. So this is yoga, how to develop our attachment to Krishna. That's the purpose of yoga. How to
Maharaj,
develop our love. Sorry?
What doubts? I mean, someone who's trained up doesn't have doubts.
So many doubts can appear in our minds in the process, and we might be doubtful about so many things. We can be doubtful about the authenticity of Vedic scriptures, for example. We can be doubtful about the process of devotional service and the results of devotional service. There could be so many doubts, and
Have you
that's
run across this in your preaching, Kshetra? From the karmis or from the devotees?
mostly from devotees.
Whoa!
But it's very important to have someone whom we trust
To explain.
and whom we can share our doubts with, and who can actually help us to dispel those doubts.
I mean, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,000 years ago. The other religions didn't even exist.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Do we have microphone, by the way?
Thank you. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
It's working, yeah.
Thank you, Jai. Thank you kindly for sharing some of your vast knowledge. I was going to say, you mentioned that after yama and niyama comes asana, and the way you described it was, that's our position, which is very nice. But then how can we understand the physical process of yoga in asana? Is it meant as a metaphor in the material context, or is it just irrelevant? Does that make sense?
Well, asana is the posture which helps you to focus. That it's basically the pivot in the yoga practices is the mind, and you can see how many verses in Bhagavad Gita are dedicated to dealing with the mind. And so yes, asana is helping us to control our mind and focus our mind. Like Bhakti Rasayana in Harinama Chintamani says, for example, that in order to chant focused japa, best thing is to sit still in, for example, what we practice in Krishna consciousness. It's known as Sukhasana, the asana most of the devotees are sitting in. So it's helpful in order to focus our mind. So that in Bhakti Yoga we also have some asanas, not too many. I would say we have Sukhasana and Shashankasana as the most popular ones. Yeah, but they're very powerful. Nevertheless, like Shashankasana, we'll be discussing that at our seminar, Life Without Conflicts, how powerful it is. And it is prescribed, basically speaking, for every single yoga, Bhakti Yoga practitioner to do Shashankasana, and the effects of properly practiced Shashankasana, that you become totally free from anger, fear, and depression. But if you don't practice it properly, you continue being influenced by these things. So it's really important that whatever is given, whatever little, it's like Bhakti Yoga is really simple. Yoga, you don't have to kind of tie yourself in a knot as many yoga practitioners do in Hatha Yoga. It's pretty simple yoga, especially Prasada Yoga. But whatever is given, whatever little is given, we have to practice properly, and then it will work. But if we don't practice it properly, it will not work. Like if we chant, if we use the, morning time for focused japa, then we'll see the difference. But if we just, basically pretend that we're doing japa while our minds are all over the universe, then it will not have an effect. And we'll continue to suffer from our conditioning. So that's important. That Krishna consciousness gives every single benefit we can ever imagine, but the condition is that we have to practice with full understanding and properly. Otherwise, if we do something just kind of symbolically, it's not going to benefit us. Yes.
And why is it that maybe there's no mention of chanting japa or Krishna consciousness in the Ashtanga sequence? So it's it says vayayam, self-inquiry through chanting, but it doesn't actually mention Krishna, for example, that I've seen.
In Ashtanga Yoga? Well, japa is part of Ashtanga Yoga also. Krishna is not mentioned specifically or not highlighted so much because there are so many forms of the Lord. Could be Vishnu, Narayan, there are unlimited forms of the Lord. And yes, Patanjali Yoga is a little bit impersonal because it's meant for covering everybody, and the only way to cover everyone is to remove details, remove specific focus, because if it is Krishna, then those who are worshipping other forms of the Lord, it will be not relevant for them. So that's the purpose. That's the reason.
That's a wonderful answer, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Yes, bro.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the amazing class. About the health, I just want to ask, what do you think about non-ahimsa dairy products? As we know, it's like damaging health a lot and all that stuff.
Non-ahimsa dairy. Well, I would say for the vegan movement, it's a good sentiment to, kind of think of the benefit of the cows. But I heard an argument that if you don't offer the milk products of the cow who are suffering at the industrial agriculture, their suffering will bring no benefit to them at all. At least if you offer it to Krishna, those cows who gave that milk, they will benefit spiritually. So, and there is, from material point of view, vegans' arguments are perfect, and it's very good sentiment. But from spiritual point of view, we need to think of the spiritual benefit of the cows. And so, if you offer their milk products to Krishna, at least their suffering will bear some good fruit for them. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. On the question of cow suffering, I look at cows. I went to Vrindavan, I saw cows, as I remember them in my childhood. Mischievous, very nice farm, nice body, beautiful body form and so on. But when you come to the West, even ahimsa cows and so on, they are bred, if I may say, beasts. They are overweight, their legs can hardly support their own weight, let alone let them walk. So when we say cows, I feel that cows should be the way the cows were intended by Krishna rather than being bred for the purpose of milk and so on.
Yeah, of course, that industrial agriculture is Kali-yuga invention, and somehow it should stop. And my understanding is that Lord Chaitanya has a master plan for the whole planet, and then he's using vegans, and he's using devotees, and he's using so many other people to help to execute that plan. Some people are contributing positively, some people contributing negatively, some people showing very ugly example of things which should not be done, and then they, help others to think now that, oh, I never want to do that. And so, yeah, it's important, I think, for us to see the bigger picture rather than just be confused or interested with only one or two details. And we understand that Krishna consciousness means udaradhi, right? This verse Prabhupada spoken many times. Akama sarvakama mokshakama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yoginaya jata purusham param, that regardless of one's position, having many material desires or no material desires, or desiring liberation, if one is broad-minded, or actually Prabhupada says one who has broader intelligence, right? That if one is practicing Krishna consciousness in a focused way, Tivrena Bhakti Yogina, then one can achieve topmost perfection. And so it's important for us to be broad-minded in Krishna consciousness. See the full picture. Otherwise, sometimes devotees become obsessed with one little detail and they don't see the yoga. They don't see the connections. And that's why, sometimes devotees are protesting against something which is part of Krishna's plan, which becomes very contradictory. That devotees become upset with Krishna executing his plan. Very strange. Shyam Govinda Prabhu.
Do you mean, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. Do you mean that we need to be able to see that Krishna's plan is happening even outside ISKCON? So as ISKCON devotees, we need to be willing to engage in society or to establish a dialogue. For example, I don't know, in a sense, be able to, in a sense, create a dialogue or interact with vegans, for example.
Yes, of course. That we need to interact with everyone, and we need to figure out how to engage everyone in devotional service, give everyone an opportunity to associate with the devotees and work with the devotees. And if anyone does anything in devotional service, they get permanent benefit, and that's why devotees have to be smart to establish collaboration with everyone in serving Krishna, and this is what the first purpose of this ISKCON stands for: achieving real unity and peace in the world. And so I would dare to say that if in ISKCON we are not focused on the first purpose, then we create another cult and not really achieving what Prabhupada wanted us to achieve. But if we want to do what Prabhupada wanted, we need to establish broad collaboration and involve as many not only people but organizations in pursuing that common goal, first purpose of ISKCON. I mean, the purpose in itself is so brilliant that it's really hard to find any intelligent person who would disagree with it. And so it's just a matter of how do we do it, figuring out know-hows. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Sorry.
Just along that line that we were just discussing, with the Ashtanga sequence being essentially impersonal because it's not giving a specific name, we could dovetail it to make it personal by giving people kirtan and by including the chanting and the yoga classes, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is already happening on quite a broad scale. That actually, in America, it becomes pretty hard to find any yoga school where people don't do kirtan. And so it's very nice.
They're even doing our kirtans.
Sorry?
They're even doing our kirtans in these yoga halls.
Yeah.
Like in New York.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's very nice that people gradually realizing that purpose of yoga is to develop their relationship with Krishna. Which, you know, I mean, devotees should be more actively utilizing these opportunities, actually.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Alright, so thank you all very much. We'll finish here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Swami.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.